Hi everybody, it's Kris here from the GallowgateShots YouTube channel. Just to let you know, as always, this podcast is now part of the 90-Minute Football Network and proudly sponsored by www.pt-4-u.co.uk. Enjoy the episode. Hi everybody, welcome back to the GallowgateShots YouTube channel. And as you can see, audio listeners won't be able to see this, but as you can see, George Caulkin's here. Hi George.
Hello. Hi George. You all right?
Evening, George.
How are you?
Knackered.
Is that just of the last 24 hours, the last 4 years?
It feels. Oh well, yeah. God, it feels like it. Yeah, I feel every day of my age at the minute. Yeah, it's been absolutely mental, hasn't it? But very pleased we got to the football stage of it yesterday until the football then started, and then it was like, I wish we were still talking about the takeover. But yeah, just been an extraordinary couple of weeks.
Bessie's back.
Hiya.
Bessie's
front.
Bessie's moved. So yeah, Bessie's moved seats. We've had to raise the camera a little bit because you might have saw a bit too much. Or a bit too little.
It's like sitting here like Hugh Davis, Hugh Edwards, nothing on the bottom half.
So what we'll do on this one, normally we'll cover the match in a little bit of detail, but I think what we'll probably do is just send the questions out for people. If you want to ask a question, then we'll go through them. But I want to come straight to you, George, because you're the guest today. Okay.
How very kind.
So you probably realise what the topic is going to be. This is something which you've avoided.
Newcastle United Football Club.
A little bit.
Okay.
A little bit. You've avoided this topic a little bit recently because you were burnt a little bit.
I think that's fair to say.
But last week, we'll take you back last Wednesday.
That feels like a lifetime ago.
It does. But last Wednesday, explain your day in regards to what you were doing when this was all about to break.
So last Wednesday. Well, in fact, I'll go back a little bit earlier if I could, just to the coming back
2015.
I was born in 1970. Yeah, so coming back from the Wolves game, which it just felt like Newcastle would be like this forever. I kind of had that sort of really depressing feeling driving back, and it was I checked my notes from the Wolves game the year before, and they were almost exactly the same as my notes, particularly what Steve Bruce said about, I mean, not so much about taking positives, but about changing the way we play and looking for balance. It was like, this is Groundhog Day. I mean, this is a year ago, and nothing has changed. And anyway, I spoke to someone that night coming back in the car, and someone who's kind of connected to being connected to the whole takeover thing, and he sort of said, "Oh well, you know, I'm told on very good authority that this could be over before January, you know, before the case." And he said, "I can't put any I can't believe that." And it was, you know, I'm way beyond the point of sort of accepting that sort of thing could happen. You just put it to the back of your head. And then on Wednesday, I got a call from a different person, but another person connected to sort of Mandy Staveley's group, and we were just having a chat, and anyway, the chat ended with him saying, "Look, I'm actually in Newcastle. Come down. How far away are you from Jesmond Dean House?" So I went down and we had a chat, sat in my car, and he basically said, I think this time it's actually happening. And so that was a massive head messer. Can I swear?
Of course you can swear.
That was a head thought. And so from that
head messer,
I was just having that crisis. So anyway, but from that point we were sort of kind of waiting for it really, and they were waiting for it to be signed off, and there were various deadlines that kind of came, not deadlines, there were various points during that Wednesday that they thought it would be announced by the Premier League, and it came and went. But it was kind of useful knowing that, because you could sort of, I mean, I still haven't got my head around it, but you could kind of prepare a bit and write a bit and start thinking about it. And then obviously, yeah, by the time the Thursday, it was announced at 5 o'clock on the Thursday, wasn't it? And so by then sort of was ready, and I kind of knew what the format was going to be in terms of the media stuff and things like that. But it's just been absolutely crazy since then. Very difficult to compute. You know what's coming, and you also know what's going to come in terms of the wider reaction, because we've had a lot of that over the last 18 months, but still was completely and utterly unprepared for it. And just days have kind of gone past with, those days where you go from call to call to call and you don't have time in between to do anything else. And so your head's just fried. But we're here. And I think, albeit the result wasn't what we wanted yesterday, there were moments within that day yesterday, I'm sure we'll talk about, which were just absolutely fabulous.
So there was a few things about the whole Jesmond Dean House thing. Obviously, we got the news that Amanda Stephen that were there when basically Keith Downey buggered off to Jesmond Dean.
They've been there for a couple of days.
So apparently, I think it was on Pod of the Time where I heard you were saying that they'd been in the Northeast for a few days prior to that.
Yeah.
So obviously they had heads up that this was all going to go through. Is it true about Shearer getting the phone call as well, saying pop down Jesmond Dean?
Yeah, he was there.
He was there as well.
Yeah, I saw him. He was there. Yeah. And we chatted. We talked about that, and he was there. And so he met. He didn't meet Amanda Staveley because she was busy doing her media stuff. But he chatted to Meardad and Jamie Rubin, and so they had a chat on that first night, which is great.
Is that just basically like a formal chat to say?
No,
it
was an informal chat. It was basically they asked his. This whole. One of the kind of weirdest things is, and this sounds so basic, but it's like seeing her face a camera and talk directly to fans, and it's like Ashley's not done that. He's not done that once.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds so straightforward. That whole thing of talking, but also listening. She said that night, our first job is to listen, and she asked my opinion. It's like, what do you think should happen? Me and Dad are the same. What do you think should happen? And it was like, well, firstly, I should be appointed director of football.
It sounds like you already have.
I already had, positions lined up for you, but it's it's very impressive. And they did the same thing with Shearer, and obviously they're sort of, there's been, they've asked him whether some sort of role at the club, whether it's ambassadorial or whatever, would be something he'd be interested in. And again, that's it's that sort of that sense of reconnection and. Sort of exactly what you want to hear.
I think it's been something, I know we mentioned this last time, Besty, when you weren't here, but it's something which we've been craving as a fan base, not just having the likes of the past heroes and club legends and even cult heroes recognised at the football club, but basically that basic communication from the top.
We've been starving of it, like George says. For 14, as long as Twitter's probably the example that most people use, most people get. I know I do for pretty much all my news. Which is why I've turned out the way I am.
Massive paranoid.
Hugely paranoid. But,
conspiracy theorist.
But everything's got to be snappy. But we've been so starved out that even the most basic communication feels like we're being we're just being kind of given all these riches. There was a photograph of someone with a telescopic mop cleaning the stadium. And Twitter went mad. This is what we wanted. They've got a window cleaner in. And this is amazing.
This is what we've lacked for 14 years. Clean windows.
One of the richest football clubs in the world still, because of the Premier League and all that. And this is what we've been reduced to. And I'm still...
Is the pigeon still there?
I'll be disappointed if the pigeon goes.
Yeah, the pigeon should maybe...
Is it the same pigeon?
Has to be.
It surely would have decomposed.
Well, yeah, it's definitely not the same pigeon.
I don't think it is, no.
It can't be.
Is it a real pigeon? Is it not like a toy pigeon, but a convincing?
No, it's the real one.
Do you know what they should do, right? Get rid of the pigeon, but everyone else is getting a statue at the minute, so give the pigeon a statue.
Really understand
just in the top of the Gallowgate.
Yeah, the pigeon.
Like, do you know how Spurs have got the cockerel on the top there? We'll just have a gold pigeon on the top.
A dead gold pigeon. A gold dead pigeon.
A cockerel with a dent in it, pass going with the air rifle.
So there's a comment in there saying the pigeon is there. So
okay,
the pigeon
good.
is
That's
there.
instant reaction.
I've never
seen.
Get rid of the... I'm trying to think what else you can get rid of first. There's all sorts, but it's
Steve Bruce.
Well, dead pigeon's a pretty good metaphor probably for. But no, it's like I say, the most basic things. And a lot of people have said this, and it's the first time I've been on here since the takeover went through. And there's so many what they call quick wins they'll be cheap, quick.
Tap-ins,
and
we were
just
calling them.
that the club haven't been doing for so long.
Yeah.
Stuff like communication, stuff like a lick of paint to tidy up. getting a positive relationship with the likes of Shearer, Keegan. I was going to say Bobby Robson there. That'll be good. And just all of these little things that are so easy to do, and we'll get the fans. And Amanda Staveley and Murdoch must be sitting there going, "This is piss easy."
I'm not sure they think. I wouldn't. I thought they were.
Maybe to start with, like after yesterday,
yeah,
less so,
yeah.
But yeah, it's just nice to have a football club that talks. Then not talks to you, but tells you stuff.
Yeah.
Just
and they went straight into the stadium the next day and did this. You know, had that open session with people who work there, and they said the same thing, that this is the first time that's happened for 14 years, and that's really important. And they said, don't worry, we're not coming in here to sack everybody. We want you to work well, and we want you to work hard, and we've got an open door policy and things like that. I mean, everything they've said has been spot on, and that is brilliant. As you say, it's been starved a bit. But they also.
And it's probably just normal as well, isn't it? Like, really, it's probably just a normal practice. It's just we're not used to seeing it.
It probably is. Yeah, it probably is. I think they've gone. I think they've sort of gone above and beyond. I mean, it's nice to. It's in the sense that because I think we've been starved of it for so long. I think that was a really important thing to do. But it's just nice to hear people talking human language. I mean, that was the other thing. Every time Newcastle, you kind of craved Newcastle to speak.
Yeah.
And when they did, you didn't understand what the fuck they were saying because they wouldn't use language. They didn't use human language. And
I think the last statement that the club released before the takeover was the one which wasn't even signed by anybody.
Yeah.
Didn't even know where that came from.
About the transfer window.
Yeah.
But it's been a lot of that. I remember Charlie in the programme a couple of seasons ago saying, right, this is the start of a new era of community. I think that was the last thing he said. Not
at the start of every single season in the programme.
Yeah.
For the last 10 years.
Yeah. There was one. How long's it been?
12 minutes. You're going to mention Rafa.
Yeah. When Rafa left and they came out, and so in the programme it was Charlie kind of like put the club's point forward as to why he didn't stay.
Yeah.
And then it was on the end of that was like, we will make sure our communication's better moving forward. And
but they also said, if you go back to his statement, then they also said we know that the manager has taken the brunt of too much stuff for too long. And now in Rafa, they had a manager who was able to. I mean, he didn't say anything unless he meant it, and he knew exactly what he was going to say. And I'm not kind of launching a defense of Steve Bruce, but he's had no protection in those terms. There's been nobody else talking.
Yeah.
And he's had to be the, you think about what's gone on in the last, 2 years from COVID to the takeover lingering on. And of course, the club have come out and sort of done these extraordinary incendiary statements about the Premier League and stuff, dark forces and whatever else. But they've not protected him on the outside at all. And so, sure enough, he's become the kind of the latest in a long list. If you include people like Alan Pardew and McLaren and John Carver, who've effectively just undermined themselves with their own words, and they've had no protection.
No, you're right. What I want to do, I want to jump forward to yesterday, basically. Deka obviously going to St James's Park. We'll look at it from like sort of fan point of view. Going to St James's Park. It was like a carnival outside of that ground yesterday. It was full of people, even outside. Can outside be full? But this was full.
Yeah, well, I picked you up, and then when we're parked up, we're walking down like the bank, weren't we? And you could just hear it. The drums were banging, and like there was so many people around the ground, and like it was just mad to see so many people excited to go, because normally it's like. It's a chore, right? It just feels like a chore, and it was like
it's an obligation.
It was like a bad marriage, and you were in it because you had to be, but you didn't enjoy it. Do you know what I mean? You were going, but yesterday was just like it was unbelievable. And to fast forward quickly, honest, I had a tear, like to be honest, when obviously the war flags display and the black and white flags were going, and I thought, oh wow, that's amazing. That, and then when I seen them coming out. Obviously, with the big river sort of coat, if you like. Yeah. When I seen that stretching out, I was like, oh, this is unbelievable. And it just got better and better. And then when they announced the chairman, and he came on the big screen to my left, it was the atmosphere there was, I've never probably experienced anything like that.
So when they announced a new chairman, the noise in St. James's Park, I don't think it was necessarily a noise to celebrate who the new chairman was, but and where obviously the money and the financial backing behind it. But I think the cheer was basically, we are free of Mike Ashley right now. I think that's mainly what the cheer was. But I was the same as you, Deka. I know Bessie was the same. We'll get on you in a minute. But I was stood there by Mark, and I could see Mark was getting a little bit emotional when the flags were waving, the banners came out, then when Big River started playing. Then I started filling up as well,
it
and it was just surreal. And I never thought I'd be in St. James's Park and experience something like that. That emotion. Yes, we celebrate goals and things like that, and we'll kick off left, right, and centre when it needs to happen. But to have tears in my eyes and not win anything, was crazy.
I was driving through the tunnel one day last week, and I put obviously takeover's kind of done and dusted. It's happened. It's official. We've got new owners. And I put Local Hero on as I drove through the Jesmond. And I was in the tunnel starting to kind of feel a bit with Local Hero, and I thought, right, this is what I need to be ready for on Sunday. Mentally toughen yourself. Don't cry at Local Hero. And then I got a WhatsApp text on a WhatsApp text. I didn't have that one.
I think that's the WhatsApp, mate.
Hello?
WhatsApp text messages.
I got a WhatsApp off one of the lads. I don't divulge the sources, so I don't say who it was. But he sent us the lines from Big River and says, here's what the flags display is going to be this weekend. I thought, all right, champion, that'll be nice. And I was in the ground and I saw them getting ready. I thought, I reckon, yeah, here we go. And then it came on and it was me mate Smithy, to me right. Absolutely, he was literally 90 degrees sobbing his heart out. And I thought, God, I can't deal. And I knew it was coming and still got us. And I had to wipe a couple away like I did.
I tell you, the moment that got me, because I was in the Milburn. I was supposed to be off last week, and so I'd, which obviously that didn't happen. But I'd got myself a ticket, and I got myself a ticket before it was all announced. So, I was actually just it was in a posh seat in the Milburn. But I was so pleased I was there though. And the moment that kind of got me was actually when the goal went in, because it was like this noise. It's like, and the way I've written it, it's like the team played like noise. It was only noise, and the team played like noise. It was just unstoppable, and it was like nothing. There was no room for anything else in your head apart from that noise, and it's like forcing everything out. And I think those of us who are old enough to remember the good, the good bits under Keegan and Sir Bobby, and just thought that was gone. And it was only. The atmosphere outside was astonishing. I mean, I got there 3 hours before kickoff, and it was like 2:45 on a Saturday. I mean, it was that volume of people. The food bank normally sets up 2 hours before kickoff, and then the first people there, they were the last people there, and people just wanted to be there. Never seen queues like that in the shop, because obviously people can now feel like they can go back to the shop. Never seen queues like that at the program sellers, because they know that was a souvenir, that was something that they wanted. People just wanted to be there, and people have not wanted to be there. And just that difference is so emotional. And there's we know all the stuff that's been going on around the club, but the thing that kind of got me is that when you take a step back and think about it over the last few years, not to sort of try and rehash that Bobby quote, but the whole idea of a club is people who sort of believe in the same thing getting together. That's the idea of a club. That's what a club means. It's people getting together for a common purpose. And what have Newcastle been? They've been the opposite to that, because there's been no common purpose. So you've had fans not wanting the owner there, the owner not wanting to be there, fans not wanting the manager to be there, the manager not having a clue what the fuck's going on, and and the worst bit about it is that us as fans have been having a go at each other too. And so the whole idea of a club Newcastle's been the opposite of that.
It's been desperate.
And so for those 2 hours before kickoff, and then those 10 minutes, everybody wants exactly the same thing. And that is the emotional thing that you see. Fuck me. That noise is what happens when everybody wants the same thing. And it's just brilliant.
There's the video of the chairman, and Amanda Savory, and Jamie Rubens here, and Deka in front. And when the flags get unfurled, you can see he's going, oh, this is brilliant. I mean, I was...
Did you read that? Did you?
I did. That's what I seen it. I seen it.
Fucking hell, Bet.
He WhatsApp texted. He says, fucking hell, Besty. Have you heard this? But I had a couple of beers beforehand, which I very rarely do on a match day now. And it was 4 o'clock, and I thought, maybe Kieran says, we'll go up the ground, we'll get a bit early. And I thought, I'll get a beer in a concourse, and not a cat in hell's chance.
So this is one, I was going to bring this up as well. I'm not sure it was the same for you. Take out the concourse you went in. I walked through the Gallowgate concourse, and it was like an away game. There was smoke going off, there's flares going off. You couldn't move. You walk through the turnstile, and as soon as you walk through, you were stopped dead because you couldn't get anywhere.
Exactly.
It was And this was
in Leeds then.
20 minutes before kickoff.
Yeah.
It really did feel like an away game.
About the same time, and I literally got through the turnstile in the corner, like strawberry corner, and I was like, I kind of almost walked sideways. I mean, it was wide that way, I'm that way now, like, but kind of shuffled that way.
Do you struggle with the turnstiles?
Not so much I used to. I 3 stone off last year, about 2 stone back on this year. But no, not so much I used to. But what about the club shop? The day after the takeover, I thought, I'm going to go and buy a shirt because I'm going to sell out. So when I drove, I got one, and it was pretty quiet in the shop, but the lads were going like, it's definitely been busy.
The home one did you go for?
The home one, aye.
Right,
thing is, though,
did you realise it's got big number 4 on the front?
Apparently so, like, I like my long stuff, so I was at Aberdeen now, anyway. But I bought one in the change of sizes. I've got one extra large, because I like the black stripes down. I don't want white bits down the side, because that's a kind of like, if you've got white bits on the side of your shirt, it's like
adding stripes.
I've got a fat lad shirt, so I thought, well, even though I'm a fat lad, I didn't buy a fat lad shirt. It doesn't fit. It's no way. It's like it didn't fit the veins.
What about extra large it was?
Aye.
Oh, okay.
Like 44-inch chest. I've only got about 8 inches.
George, jumping across to you. Obviously, I'm assuming you would have spoke to people in the likes of the press box and things like that.
Not yesterday, I didn't. No.
Did you not? Have you spoken to them today?
Oh, yes.
Right. Okay. So, what was it like for them? Because it looked busy everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to Kris, obviously my colleague, and no, it was. I mean, so there were COVID protocols there. So even if I'd wanted to I'd have kicked Kris out because he's my apprentice in every way. I hope you're watching. But no, so I couldn't have got in. So there were limited numbers. There could still only be, two people per organisation or publication, but. Those people were very different. I mean, it was the chief sports writers who were here, and it's the chief football writers. And so suddenly, I mean, it's that very weird thing where, and I met a load of them. I met people like Henry Winter, who was a former colleague at the Times. He was dropping stuff off at the food bank, and Matt Lawton, who's at the Times now as well. And you met those people who wouldn't often come. I mean, Henry tries to come to Newcastle because he likes coming here, but they wouldn't be here because of a footballing match normally, because we're shit. So why would you be here unless they were playing a big, a so-called big club? But I mean, suddenly overnight, Newcastle have, we're not the biggest team in the world at the minute, but we are the biggest story, and have been for a couple of weeks. And that feels like that's not going to change anytime soon. And so they were all here. So, and again, outside, you have got BBC and ITV and Sky and BT Sport doing stuff outside, doing interviews, but you've also got Japanese TV were there and Middle Eastern TV were there, and suddenly just the whole atmosphere like that has changed. People, it's a moment, it's an occasion, and you have to be there. And we're all going to have to get used to being in the eye of the world again.
Well, it's something which we've just noticed already. So it's 7 changes, I think, for the TV fixtures.
Yeah,
I think there's 7 over the festive period, which is ridiculous.
Before the transfer window, so it's going to be this Newcastle.
It's going to be, I didn't even think about that. It is going to be this Newcastle.
It's going to be like Isaac Hayden and goal.
Yeah, bless him.
Going to the game, obviously, the atmosphere is unbelievable, something which we haven't seen in a long time. But Deka, I know you wanted to touch a little bit on the atmosphere and how it turned. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't happy, to be honest. I wasn't happy because I thought... I think I had the wrong sort of thought process of how the game would play out. I knew it would get beat, by the way. But atmosphere-wise, I felt like the result and performance wouldn't matter in regards to how the atmosphere would be in the ground. I kind of felt like everyone was there for the reason of Ashley not being there, in the sense of being a new era, new hope, etc., etc. And I felt as if the second Tottenham scored, that was it. No, there wasn't another song after that, from what I remember.
It was really quiet.
And I was really there was Bruce out, yeah. I was really disappointed in that it totally flattened the atmosphere. And obviously there was another reason, which we'll come to also, why that happened. And I personally feel that if Bruce hadn't been sacked, it wouldn't have been that way. Even if we were 3-1 down at half time, I don't think anyone would have been bothered. Like I think because of keeping him in there, it immediately changed the atmosphere in regards to like, we need him out, and it just changed. And I personally just felt that I was disappointed that for all, and I'll never ever forget, by the way, that the pre-game, just before kickoff in that first 10 minutes, I won't. But I was disappointed, if I'm honest with you, with how the atmosphere changed.
It was like I've for years been, because I've, what you said earlier about kind of becoming like disenfranchised with it. And for me, the highlight of the game was a point when I was on the escalator at Monument going up Haymarket. I'm a Haymarket man. Up the escalator there. And I remember thinking, this is as good as it's going to get. I've got the anticipation bit. It's just hit us that were shit, were terrible.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want to be here. And it was like you were fulfilling an obligation by going to the match. Whereas, and I've said for years now, I don't know if it's because football's got worse. I've got older and I'm just a bit less kind of enthusiastic about things. And it turns out that isn't the case, because I was not so much. It was a shame that the takeover was 10 days before the game or 9 days, whatever it was, because that kind of, it didn't flatten things for me, because it's still obviously a wonderful thing. But we
spent a lot of last week waiting, didn't we?
Yeah,
because nothing really happened last week.
If it had been the takeover Thursday game on Sunday, it would have been. And there would have been no time to get upset about the Bruce situation, because really, if you'd sack him, if the first thing they did was sack him and had a game that Sunday, whoever comes in hasn't got time to. They'd have been a spectator basically.
But even if that had just give Jones, you know what I mean, Graham Jones, just for Sunday, say,
I'd rather they did that.
Everyone would have.
I think and I'm sure we'll talk about the manager, but I looked around when that Spurs goal went in, and I just thought everybody was knackered at that point, and I think the fans were not, and because I think the players were knackered. I think
adrenaline jumped.
Yeah, I just think everybody, including us, it's like it feels like you've been just running on adrenaline, and you've got that thing. But if everyone gets there 2 hours before, well, not everyone, but a lot of people there 2 hours before, and you're excited, and you for how long have people been going to the stadium and obviously want to be engaged, but you're sitting back because it's going to be shit.
Yeah.
And you've sort of persuading yourself not to care anymore, because you're going to get disappointed. And suddenly you care, and you really care, and it's this incredible noise. I think people were knackered. I honestly think when that's and I think part of that is that it's actually it's tiring to care, which is why a lot of people have chosen not to care over the last kind of couple of years. And I agree. I mean, I think if you're talking about the managerial situation, I think that a big trick was missed, and I don't think they've done that on purpose. I think a football decision has been taken, and I think it was right at the start. I think it's become a bureaucratic decision now, and I think that's what we're kind of waiting for, or to use the word that gets used a lot, a process decision. But in football, you have to take football decisions sometimes, and sometimes you just have to take the first decision and see what happens. And I think the right decision, I think the right decision for Steve Bruce as well, not just in terms of payoff, but I think the right decision for everybody was doing that clean break at the start. And however long Graham Jones would have got is sort of irrelevant. You then have that, because that 70 minutes or 80 minutes and those chants of Steve Bruce, we want Brucey out and stuff like that. It's not what yesterday should have been about. But it was that at the same time, it was that kind of quite stark reminder that the 2 hours before and the 10 minutes in, this was new, and then what happened after that was, no, okay, this is still Mike Ashley's team, and this is still Steve Bruce's team, and it's going to stay like that. It is going to stay like that for a while, because we're a long way away from the window.
That first 10 minutes was what you feel St James's Park can be like.
Should be like.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And in your head, that's what it's like every week.
It's what I remember. It's how I remember it being like 1997.
Tottenham didn't punt the ball. Like they couldn't keep hold of the ball. Like
they were terrified.
They were terrified. And I was sitting thinking like, that's what every home game should be. Every opposition team should feel that sort of pressure or whatever. So
my thoughts, it might sound strange, but you might be thinking the same. When the atmosphere was that good, in my head, I thought, Mike, actually, this is what you could have had. You could have had this, but you chose not to.
I suppose he did a couple of times. Maybe when he appointed Keegan again, what they had black and white grounds and stuff. I was there. It was exciting to play Bolton. It was an awful game, it was exciting. And even when he first started in that summer in '97, when he signed Joey Barton.
I just go back to that season in Europe when we just didn't sign anybody, and I thought you had the chance there.
And that was when that came in.
Yeah, and I felt horrible that he come in at the same time as well. Bigger Ramona, there wasn't any
afterwards. I think.
I just thought you could have had this. You could have had this sort of thing a lot more frequent than what you did. And it's, I know he's gone now, but I wonder if he was sat at home. I know he's a lot richer now, £300 million richer. But
nice, that, wasn't it?
he might have been sitting there thinking,
well, you had a chance.
I could have done it.
I mean, it's true. You had a chance. We were ready for new owners at that point, and you know, I remember feeling positive. You know, it's like, okay, well, this makes sense. I don't know how it makes sense, but I'm not, you know, he's got a sportswear firm, and it's so he can kind of get that out, and you know, he's rich. He's a lot richer than the Halls and Shepherds, and it's like, okay, well, this, yeah, and he got it in the sense of, you know, mixing with fans and things like that. How sincere that was, I don't know, but it was just one terrible decision after another. You couldn't put two good decisions together. You couldn't really put one good decision together.
Half a decision. We'll give him half a decision.
And yeah, just it didn't have that, you know, that sense of what's right. I mean, I don't mean in terms of right and wrong. I just, in terms of football, you know, he's obviously got that touch in business where he can sense something, and it was like the opposite in football. It was like, you know, he was the King Midas of shit. It was like everything he touched turned to shit.
Yeah, that is a great way of thinking about it. What I want to touch on before we get in there at the whole Steve Bruce thing and the current situation he finds himself in is obviously what happened just before half-time when players stopped because of the medical incident in the East Stand. From my point of view, where I'm sat Gallowgate East, Gallowgate Strawberry Corner, where Ben's there, and we noticed pretty quickly with the crowd of people what was going on. And you would have probably seen it yourself from your angle. You're a bit higher up from me, aren't you?
It was more, I noticed the Gallowgate reacting. And that was when I thought, what's going on? I thought it was someone on the pitch. I couldn't work out what it was.
No.
It was only when I think it was Isaac Hayden came over.
Yeah.
Talked to someone, and he came back doing that. And
So,
I thought he was defibrillator.
Well,
I hadn't thought he meant CPR.
Around about, I would say, 5 to 10 minutes prior to that, that's when the work started, when the stewards pointed out and the fans came over. And it was distressing to see everything was happening. My sister, who sits to the seat to the right of us, she couldn't watch it. She actually got up out of her seat and walked into the concourse because we could see the likes of the chest compressions and things like that. And you could see the Dr. Pritchard, who ran across to take over from the nurse. He started stripping off to do the compressions, and fantastic that the players noticed that as well, with the fans shouting on the pitch when Spurs had the corner at that point. And I think it just brings to your attention how important it is to have more defibrillators in close proximity. For it to have to come from the club doctor to run across the field blows my mind.
There was another one apparently though. That was a second one. So
was that the second
one?
Two donated, wasn't I think?
Yeah, there were. He was already being worked on one closer by.
Okay.
So that's my understanding. But it certainly, I mean, it's certainly reminded me that if that happened in the row behind me, what the hell would I do? And I wouldn't know. So I want to try and educate myself on those sort of just basics, what you do in that sort of situation, because I wouldn't have a clue. It's terrifying.
It can happen as well. Yeah, it's one of those things that you don't know. It's not you don't get cardiac arrest. You don't get a warning. It just that happens.
Yeah. And I know we were all watching within the stadium, and obviously back in the Sky studio, David Ginola was there, who recently had a cardiac arrest as well, and he obviously went out and told everybody how important these sort of devices were as well. And obviously we're seeing Fabrice Muamba on social media once again promoting it and everything. And I think we're at a point now where maybe the club should look at, I think there was a tweet, I can't remember which football club it was, but there was a tweet earlier today where they had like a workshop for fans that wanted to attend, just for basic training.
It's great show.
I think sometimes it's awful to say this in a way, but like bad things
change
sometimes have to happen. Does that make sense? And then for the good to happen, I think it's not something we've ever thought about. I've never ever thought about that, and I agree totally with George says. Like I was actually sitting there thinking, God, you know, like if that happened to him to me, right, I wouldn't know what to do. I wouldn't have a clue what to do.
You're just
so yes, I totally agree that I think all of us could be educated more on it, like for sure. And it was just absolutely awful.
It was, and we just have to say fair play to sort of everybody that reacted so quickly, and it includes people, includes Spurs players who behaved brilliantly.
Was it the left back? I can't remember.
Reddion was it?
Yes, that's right.
Reddion
Ran straight with the left.
The referee as well. The referee did well with that. I thought like kind of it was.
And I think you know, not to trivialize it at all, but from that moment, I mean, so and I know the adrenaline had faded by then quite a lot, but you've got this thing of, okay, this is our day, we're all in together, and it's like, this is our club, and we're back. And then something like that happens again, and it's sort of, okay, well, really, football is just make believe, and so all this stuff you worked up for, it sort of fades again, and it was never ever going to come back. That I don't think from that point, and I'm certainly not I would never dream of using it as an excuse. But I felt by that point, and I was almost sort of diagonally opposite, because I was in the Milburn. But I was kind of closer to the Leazes end, so I really had no idea what was happening. And then you suddenly get this sense of, oh no, this is bad, and you just feel that sense of sickness, don't you?
Yeah.
And you just can't, get it back after that, because you're just sort of thinking, the worst, and you get that kind of realization of where football. Tell ourselves it's the most important sort of thing in the world, and of course something like that happens, and it's not.
I think you're right what you're saying, though, that atmosphere, it was already on the downward spiral.
It was.
Anyway.
It was.
But to get that back up to even at an average level was almost impossible, being obviously what we had just witnessed in the East Stand, as well as being 2-1 down. Then as soon as play started resuming again, a few minutes later, it's the third goal goes in, and that just takes everything. Any sort of a positive atmosphere out of St. James's Park, unless it's come from the Spurs fans. Then the second half, that's when you started hearing the more prominent Bruce out chants.
It started off
there was a tiny little spell,
and after when I first noticed was maybe it's 55 minutes, 60 minutes in, and they were getting kind of drowned out straight away.
By
Newcastle, you had a couple of songs, and then we're going to sing positively, and then the longer it went on, the more it happened, the less opposition there seemed to be to it, and by full time, it was pretty much the whole corner was singing it.
Yeah.
And that flatness made it just feel like a Newcastle game again, didn't it?
Yeah, it was a reminder. We're still Newcastle. We've still got,
I think that's a great point. I think once the adrenaline and the momentum left that ground, we realised that we're still shit.
Oh yeah, there's still a long way to go. George said earlier, we're not. It's strange that we've had this takeover and the elation of it, and then when we've come back, we've still got the same manager playing the same players. We've got
nothing's changed. There's been no appointments. There's been no dismissals. There's been nothing. I mean, and I know that they're working towards those things, but that was the sort of one of the surreal things about the weekend. Was that this is exactly the same group of people.
I think with it happening so far away from the transfer windows, there's not going to be hosts. Even people have said there's going to be 40-50 million pounds to spend, and people have been upset with that. And I think that's really good.
It's 40 million pound more than what we were going to have to do.
It's what I was told. It's what I was told at the start of. It's what they've been saying for ages. It's going to be a build. It's going to be a slow build.
It's a damn sight better than being told there's 15 million pounds to spend, but that includes wages
and agent fee.
Yeah. I'll take that every time. No problem. I think I don't think it'd take that much to make Newcastle safe. I think the right appointment as manager or coach and director of football, however they're going to structure that, and there's not got to be, to keep them safe, there hasn't got to be wholesale changes for me. We've got to do with better players, obviously.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at
but I think a better coach keeps this team up.
Absolutely. You look at that back four, though, man. I mean, we had that in 2017. We had Kieran Clark. We had Matt Ritchie, who was a right winger then. We're going to play left back. I do worry, honestly. I do, and I know if we get a better manager, and I have actually got something that just come in my head there. So, obviously, you were saying there that you believe, like you've been told or something, that's kind of is 40-50 million the figure-ish.
The still build scenario, yeah.
So, if that is the case, then in terms of attracting a manager, I don't know how to say this without being really negative, because people kick off. So the names that were mentioned before that I had seen, I don't believe for a second they'll come if that's what's available in January. I'm not saying that's a bad thing in terms of what's available. I'm just saying there's a open question here. Is that the names I see mentioned as manager, I was like, well, if there is only going to be 40 or 50 million, there's no chance they're coming in January.
And there would obviously then be money in the summer. But again, I think you're talking about sort of £100 million net in the summer. I mean, I think that sort of region, I know, £100 million net. So that includes whatever, on top, that also, that would be augmented by whatever you bring in on top. That's the way they have to, that's the way they're going to build it. We're not going to suddenly go out and buy a £100 million player. It makes no sense. It doesn't do Newcastle any good.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, it might be funny, but it wouldn't sort of, Newcastle need 4 or 5 £20 million players or 25 million pound players to get to the next bit and then build and grow, and hopefully, so that's what it's going to be, and that's how they're doing it. Certainly for now, that's what the message coming back is. It's run as a business, it's run as a it's run like that, and there are obviously rules that stop Newcastle spending ridiculous amounts of money all in one go. They could spend more money than that, but anyway, that's certainly the plan. In terms of the manager, I mean, I think they have found. I think that's been one of the reasons why there's been this delay, because they are thinking about what happens next. Now, to me, you just have to. As I said before, you have to take that first decision. You commit to that first decision. I mean, obviously, you don't then want to be in a limbo where you've got, okay, well, you think you'll have Graham Jones there for one or two games. He loses the first game. What happens? What happens then? I understand there needs to be a process and thought to what happens. But to my mind, there was an opportunity at the weekend to have that lift on the pitch, in the dressing room, in the stands, and that kind of opportunity was missed. I think this idea of them looking at a sort of, what's the word? Not stopgap. What's the phrase?
Interim, like an interim.
Kind of interim manager. I think that is something that's been discussed.
Something which Chelsea's done a couple of times, haven't they?
Yeah.
Rafa was it Rafa? I think.
Did Rafa?
Scolari?
Yeah. I can't remember. They did have a manager that kicked off with that interim title. I can't remember. Was it Rafa?
It was Rafa. Yeah. Who obviously did brilliantly for them. But I mean, Newcastle also aren't Chelsea, so you're not going to get Rafa, but not going to get not going to get that level of manager. So what does that mean? Does that mean Graham Jones, or does that mean somebody else? I'm sort of unclear about that. I mean, I think the reason for why that has been discussed is because the people that they might ideally want aren't available at the moment.
One of the things which we mentioned last week, Deka, when we done our podcast just 7 days after the takeover, was you kind of understand why they didn't go in all guns blazing straight away and sack Bruce, because obviously that normally means that the coach and staff disappears as well. If Graham Jones was to take over as interim manager until the end of the season, does that mean he gets a chance to bring his own coaching team in, which means it could be further payouts down the line?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and I think that's something that, again, so it was put to me last week, sort of halfway through last week. It's like, yeah, we know what needs to happen, we know what needs to change, but one decision leads to another 4 or 5 decisions, and so we're trying to work 4 or 5 decisions ahead. I think that becomes very difficult, because football is such a sort of instant business in some ways. I mean, yes, you want people to have long-term planning and long-term thoughts about what you do and what you. But again, I would argue that what happened last week was probably the worst of all possible worlds, because you've got a position where, on the training ground, in the training ground, sort of around that, there's an expectation that the manager's going to go, and we already know because of results that you don't expect it to be a happy camp when you're not winning games, and of course it's not. And a manager kind of lives or dies on the authority he has, and so that was already very difficult for Steve Bruce. Not to mention the outside stuff in terms of fan opinion, which has already gone way beyond the point of no return. And I think Steve Bruce expected to go last week, if not before. And so I think that becomes very difficult, and it becomes very difficult. I mean, I just think you can be as absolutely professional as you want, as a player, as a coach, as a staff, but I think that makes preparation very, very difficult for a match, particularly when there's going to be all this emotion, and so that's why I thought that they would act last week, and why I'm surprised that they didn't. As I say, there was you only get one go at your first game, and it doesn't mean that Newcastle would have won yesterday. I just think that there would have been a lift internally as well. And that, again, I'm not having a go at Steve Bruce by saying that. I'm not saying that every single player wants him out, but they do want certainty, and that's something I remember. This is something that you can boo if you want when I say this. I remember Lee Cattermole saying, and he was talking about all the turmoil at Sunderland, with managers kind of coming and going all the time. I thought it was a really interesting point. He said, as a player, you want certainty. You want to know what your job is. You want to know what the player next year knows his job. You want to know, you want to look around the dressing room and know that. You look at the manager, you want to know that the instructions you're getting are clear. You want certainty. And as soon as that goes, you're in trouble. Newcastle did not have any certainty sort of in the dressing room and the training ground last week. And we've probably not had certainty for a long time as a club. But I just, I think that's something that's kind of stayed with me. And yes.
One of the things that me and Deka were talking about before you two turned up, and something which I've noticed in regards to the media is previously, let's say the last 12 months, it's been like the pundits saying Bruce deserves a chance, Bruce should stay on and keep his job. It's not too bad. Newcastle fans are being too harsh on him, criticising him too much. Now, over the last 24, 48 hours, it feels as if that the pundits are now saying the owners have got to come out and tell him what's happening, or give him his money. So it seems like now it's swayed to just sack him and give him his money. That's the impression which I got from Gary Neville's rant earlier on Sky on Monday Night Football. It seems like now they're saying, just sack him, put him out of his misery and give him £8 million or whatever the figure is.
Yeah, because I to be honest, I kind of agree with some of that, because generally speaking, when new owners come in, they normally want their guy, right? That tends to be the way it is. And just look at the results alone. I mean, forget about being a new regime and wanting a new guy. I mean, his job should be on the line, rightfully, because of the results. But like them coming in, I'm sure Neville, Carragher, all of them thought, oh, well, he's going to get the chop before the next game. And when that didn't happen, touching on George's point, it's pretty much that, isn't it? Is that the uncertainty that's there. Bruce can say, I'll be professional, I can go into work on time and I'll do what I've got to do. I'll put the cones out for you. But he knows he's a dead man walking. He knows sooner or later that call's going to come where it's, sorry, don't come in tomorrow. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And I just really feel that it should have happened before Sunday. I really do. And I kind of, I don't like to say this, but I kind of agree with the point of, give him his money and go.
I think it would be fairest for everybody. The point about the pundits is an interesting one, because that's one of the things that is, definitely not Jamie Carragher and Guy Neville, because they're brilliant, and it was great when they came up for the match of the week and they actually spoke to fans, because that's that is this fucking perennial thing about pundits saying, what is it that Newcastle fans want? Well, the first 10 minutes is what we want. I was
there last Wednesday, George. I went down to Manchester. I do the overlap with Neville and Carragher, and they both seem to understand the situation. They both get, apart from Paul Scholes, he was an idiot.
Right.
But the other two,
you did your best, though.
Honestly, I'm not getting on a rant about Paul Scholes again.
No, but it's people, and it's people talk about lazy journalism and lazy, but it's like, okay, if you want to know what they want, ask them the question and try and understand, and come here and just watch the football, but B, ask and have that conversations. And the really good pundits, and I'd very lucky to work with Alan Turing now, but I remember even before I did, he'd be the kind of person, if he's not seen Newcastle for a few weeks, he was doing match, or was doing a live game in the FA Cup, whatever, he would ring you up and he would actually say, what's it been like? What's been happening? And I'm not saying all pundits have to ask journalists but he made an effort to sort of to find out. Yeah. And it's not difficult for people like Robbie Savage or Chris Sutton to actually speak to people. This perennial, what do they want? You're on a radio show where you're trying to get people's opinion, and instead of just laughing at them and saying he's doing a great job, actually listen and have a conversation.
I think that's the problem. I think a lot of it does come down to lazy journalism, but the ones that you mentioned there, talk sport, basically. It's vindictive journalism. It's not lazy. It's trying to upset people to get a reaction.
But that's the point.
Yeah, but it's an awful model. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's shock. So.
Unfortunately, it works though. It works.
How often do you see you getting shared? I can't believe he said this. Don't share it.
Yeah,
I've you hear that, don't you?
A few times I've put stuff on it. I hate telling people. I don't like telling people what to tweet, because do what you want. I'm not racist, basically, mainly, but do what you want. Say what you want on Twitter. It's a forum, isn't it? But if you argue with something and you're feeding them,
absolutely, it's what they're looking for, isn't it?
It is. It's exactly.
It's very hard, though, isn't it, when you see it? I try my best to go past it.
It's taken me a long time, and I'm not saying I've got it right now, but it's taken me a long time to get to the point.
I'm at the point where I'll have a pop on social media at them, but I'm not ringing up. I'm not falling into that trap.
I would never do that, because they're just
I'll dip my toe in, but I'm not jumping in. George, this is giving a shot at me. Some of the comments in here. I'm not sure if you've heard this before, but there's apparently talks of Rooney coming in regards to some sort of coaching role.
That'll be all right, wouldn't That's not something I've heard, but I can't. Please don't make that sound like it means it's not happening. I just don't know. That's not something I've heard.
So there's a few comments in talks of Rooney, both Rooney and Shea Given getting some coaching roles at the club.
So it's only 16 years after we tried to sign him.
Oh, he's coming.
Yeah. So we finally got a man.
Our bid. I remember the front back page. Our bid for Rooney was no.
We might get Modric soon.
Honestly, I don't know, but I can't say for definite because it's not a question I've asked. It's not.
It's a strange one, absolutely strange one. That came out of nowhere.
He's not been a Derby. Derby's not exactly going brilliantly, but
no idea, mate. No idea. If anybody does have any questions for George, we'll go through them. Is there any questions that you two want to go through?
Don't ask me questions. That's just.
We do this all the time, though.
George,
people are sick of us.
Did you enjoy the Great North Run this year? I did it, but
no one cares. Listen, I could make that the longest answer of the night if I started talking about the Great North Run.
It was horrible. Going back over, it's the hardest bit, but twice.
Did you do it?
Yeah.
Oh, so I didn't even know.
I got the point. I got the halfway point where I had the big screen and you turn back.
Yeah.
I had a Fitbit. I was doing a Fitbit step challenge thing, so I got a Fitbit on that one. I've got this watch on that hand, and I was walking by that point. I was walking from the kids at stadium,
right?
Basically. It was really dispiriting because when you first start off, normally it's just one line of people. But at the start, there was people that had done 11 miles who I was passing, and I was just starting. I thought, shit.
I quite like that because I was right at the front. Not because I'm quick. That's just where my place was because I've done the kind of Ruby membership, so because I'm so paranoid about not getting in, I've paid to kind of get in.
I've done that this time as well.
Have you? Yeah. And so I was right at the front. Now that was dispiriting because I didn't overtake a single person. I got overtaken by about 20,000 people, which was horrible. But the good bit about it was that when I didn't have all those people who'd already done 5 or 6 miles more than me. Yeah. So by the time I turned around, I was just staring at people who looked really knackered and who'd done it. So I got a bit of a lift from that. I quite enjoyed going into town, although my legs had gone by then, and I loved finishing on the town moor because it just felt. It was just a great setting, and I could walk home. But it has to finish at South Shields.
I was going to say you sat around 3 South Shields lads.
No.
The answer there.
It's the South. It follows the river and it ends at the sea, and that is the whole point of it. And they've already said it's going back there next year, so it should. That's its home, and I'll happily take. The 5 hours it takes to get back.
Business-wise, Shields pubs must have lost a.
Oh God, it's been massive. It's been it's absolutely massive. You do get that. You do get that. Sort of understand what it means, but I guess having it the way they had it is better than not having it at all. It was because it meant. I mean, I still love doing it, and I felt okay. Well, this is a one-off, so I'm going to enjoy it. And we know how much money it brings into the region in terms of people staying in hotels and bars and restaurants and all the rest of it. But also that charity money, I mean, that is so important.
It's huge, It was really well done, I thought as well.
It was incredible.
The stuff with the start going over the town more and the GNR 40. It looked great.
Yeah.
It was coming back was the spirit as well. From the opposite, because I was coming back when by the time I got to Heworth metro station. Like the road sweepers were on and stuff like that.
Oh, right,
there's more or less people driving up. I thought, shit, I'm near the back here. It was lovely going through the city and stuff like that. And it was
it has to end in Shields, and it will do that. It's their home. They know that.
One of the questions is there's a few questions here. It's something which a lot of fans have been asking for, and I know you mentioned it last week, George. I'll put it on screen. It's from Adam Beckett, who says, "Any idea how long Sports Direct signs will be up?"
No, I asked that on the first night. Of the takeover. So I did ask that question, and I was just told. I wasn't given an on-the-record answer, but it was that it's a short-term, temporary thing. But I don't know what that means. I'm afraid.
Do you think we should probably expect them for the remainder of the season?
I don't know. I mean, it sounded like it could be 1 week. It sounded like it could easily, it could be in 4 or 5. I mean, in the context of 14 years. I think we just have to accept it's there for now, but it's part of the deal. And that Mike Ashley wouldn't miss a trick.
I think we mentioned this months and months ago. I think we mentioned this in the podcast that we've done from home during lockdown, is that if it means selling the club, that the Sports Direct signs have to stay, then you take it.
He's not an idiot. Yeah. And the thing is, there's now a full stadium and there's going to be TV cameras there.
Yeah.
Whether it's live games or not, and they're looking at Sports Direct still. And so I mean, I did sort of make the point that when they asked me my opinion, the visuals of those signs coming down is going to be such a big part of the club moving on. But so yes, I asked the question. Short-term temporary is the phrase that I was used.
So they're coming down imminently.
That word.
That is
word.
below the belt. That is below the belt.
Bessie, I'll come to
Expect it
you.
better than you.
Jesse Lingard.
What they're watching?
Yeah.
Oh,
This one's from Jason.
Yeah,
What's
he was there,
Did they mean the Instagram
Yeah.
post?
So there's an Instagram post.
He's representatives
or at St James's Park. What's your thoughts on that? Is Jesse Lingard the sort of player that we should be looking at bringing in January?
I think there's been a lot said about kind of, and it's not been Newcastle fans saying it, or if they have been saying it, it's been in jest or in kind of a little bit fancy world saying, like about Mbappe, Haaland, and all this kind of thing. I think realistically, Jesse Lingard's at the top end of who we not expect to get, but at the top end of who we could get as far as talent-wise. Name, but
I agree.
We're not going to turn up in the money that I spend in January or in the summertime, and all of a sudden we've got this brand new team of world beaters. And Lingard's, if he's available, I would snap up in a heartbeat. I think he's
say 15 million.
It's been quite a nice redemption story as well, where he's kind of he had the good World Cup for England. Fell out of favour a bit at Man U, fell out of form, and went on loan to West Ham. And it's been a bit of a kind of.
You would expect West Ham to probably want him back, like if it's
I would expect so. I was a little bit surprised he didn't go there actually, because he last time I checked, I think he'd only started one game at Man U. He's done well off the bench, but he hasn't been starting many games. I suppose Ronaldo coming back's going to have made that even harder. I don't know if he's in the same position, but that they're going to try and fit him in as best they can. So Lingard is a type of player that I think would be excellent for us.
Can I just say this has nothing to do with.
I thought the Gary Lineker glasses came on there, George. I thought this is it.
Kirsty says something just seems wrong when you hear George Caulkin swear.
I think that's been said a few times.
I feel like that as well. Yeah, honestly, I do.
Is it because I'm like an older gentleman? You expect me to be sort of?
Just like no swearing whatsoever. So I think the first time I heard you swear was on the Athletic one podcast. I think it was, and I was like, "Whoa, he swears."
The one Athletic one I did. I've only been invited on once. The one I did, I got told like try not to swear too much because it's an American company that don't like. Whenever I listen, they're all at it. It's terrible.
Yeah, I think our standards have slipped. Our standards have slipped a lot now that I think about that.
Yeah.
I think we were given a list of words that we could and couldn't say. Anyway, I'm sorry. I don't know whether that means I should swear more or less.
It's like hearing your dad swear, isn't it?
It is.
Great.
Excellent.
You've done it again.
What is
That's why we're separated like this.
What is going on?
You know that one time you got invited on, you're definitely not coming back on again.
This is it. This is the resentment spilling out now. I've listened to loads of audiobooks during my lockdown stuff. You've gone for walks.
George went on them as well, is he?
No, it was a barman's book. He's one. It's like 28, like 30 hours long, and he drops occasional one, and you think that's
just not right.
It's a bit like Alan George.
This is going to be a YouTube beef. We're going to be in a boxing ring. We're going to be in a boxing ring.
I'll fire through a couple of more of these questions. Marty Lawrence says, I'll ask it to everybody. I'll start with you, Deka. Try and extend the current stadium or new stadium.
Oof. Not happy with this question.
Yeah, I'm not. Well, extending it's difficult, right? Very difficult.
I don't know how they could. If they could,
because of the
There'll
land.
Be a way, but I think there'll be a lot of work involved.
The thought of moving. Well, it's a funny one because if you move, then that means we've been incredibly successful over this time to come.
True. Yes.
So then you kind of take that and go, wow, like we've obviously done something really right to then move ground. But of course, leaving your home, if you like, is upsetting, right? Nobody wants to do that. I don't want to do that, but
something
I feel that
City jumping into a bit too quickly, I think.
Yeah, them did it. Yeah, obviously the Emirates happened. It's funny, isn't it, when you think I've been going back to a kid here. I think like Highbury, I thought Arsenal never leave there. I'm only a Bain at the time, You just never expect that to happen. And White Hart Lane never expected Tottenham to be in a position to got what they've got now. But then I look at Tottenham Stadium, I'm like,
and it's the same, and that is effectively the same.
It's the same site,
it's the same place. I mean, I suppose I don't know. Maybe now technology has moved on so much that, albeit it looks like that site is hemmed in. Maybe there's a way of maybe there is now a way that they could do it. I would find it very difficult to think about leaving. But I suppose you talk about Highbury, which is such a brilliant stadium. It sort of happens. It would be a nice.
Do you know when the plans? I'm going back years now. When Keegan, what was the thought then? Because I was only young, obviously at the time, and
so the Castle Leazes.
It was the sight lines. It was the old sight lines of the Georgian Terrace Leazes.
Yes,
Terrace was the problem, and that couldn't be extended at that point. Again, I don't know whether those buildings are so gorgeous. They have to be protected. I see that. So how it might be put, can you somehow sink the? Oh God, I don't know. It's not, but perhaps there would be a way that they could look at that. I mean, I don't think that should be anywhere near the top of the list.
It's nowhere near priority.
And the first, the sort of not scary thing, but the sort of big thing is, even when you're talking about things like training ground, it's like, oh yeah, we'll get a new training ground. Well, I did have this conversation again on Takeover Night. Had a beer with a couple of them after, when all that media stuff was done, and it was like, well, they hadn't physically been into the training ground that Newcastle already have. That's one thing. They weren't allowed to speak to anybody at the club until they bought it, and they weren't allowed to look at it. So you can see from above. You can see what the plans are. You can see what the space is, but they hadn't gone in. And the way that was put to me was, okay, well, we have to speak to designers, we have to speak to architects, we have to see whether we can rebuild on that land, we have to see whether we could take it somewhere else. You're talking about something that might be 3 years away. Getting a new. So the first thing they'll have to do is improve the training ground that they've already got. Yeah. And the same, certainly the same applies to the stadium. That it's about time to give that place some TLC and treat it with the respect it deserves, and treat it with the respect the people inside it deserve. So I hope that, that would be a very nice problem to have, but I hope we're not a long way away from that, having that nice problem. I hope that's not something that is considered for a long time.
It's quite sad. I got it. It was Darryl Mitchell Hill. He had this Fortress St James book. On the Telegram group last week. So I found it on Amazon. It was £2. It came today. I've sat and flicked through it before I come here tonight, and it was written. It was Paul. Is it Paul Joannou? Yeah. Joannou. I can't pronounce it. I don't say that. And it was published just after the Milburn and Leazes got extended, so 2001-ish, around that time. And it's really hopeful, and it looks beautiful, and it goes through the proposed move further up Leazes Park, and there's loads of. It was Archibald Leach, see the design hybrid.
Yeah.
And some of his drawings for what the site at St James's could have been had he got. It's really interesting. I'll have a good proper read of it through the week probably. But like I said, it's got Newcastle, and here's what it looks like from east to west, north, south. And it's this fabulous new. We've got a big, and it's so hopeful. And just where it's been left for the last 14 years is awful.
I think it's so much part of the character of the city where it is now, and it takes you completely into the realms of Newcastle cliche, but. The fact you've got it there, looming over the city, and in some ways, for a lot of the last 10 years, it's been a bit of a malevolent. Yeah, it's like, oh fucking hell.
It's been looming.
Sorry, Kirsty. Bit of a malevolent kind of presence, but it's there and it's part of us, and so you can't escape it, and it just feels so perfect for kind of who we are and where we are, that it's just there, right in the middle, and it's just part. And I think if you move a few hundred yards, you sort of change the character of the club. I love the fact it's just there. It is the city. It's in the city. It does still have that kind of there are plenty of other stadiums that are kind of still in cities, but it's the fact that it's in the city and prominent and central.
It's perfect where it is.
You can't get any more central than where it is.
Yeah. It's even like my little boy was born in August, and I had 5 minutes out of the RV. So I just went for a walk around Leazes Park. They've got the lake there, the pond, whatever. I walked around St James's, and it's just there. It's right in there. It's absolutely, like I say, you've got 3 city centre metro stations there, before Jesmond, I suppose 4, and you can get there in 10 minutes from all of them. And it's just, I've got the same dilemma as you, Deka, where I'd love to think in 10 years' time that there's that 70, 80,000 people have the appetite to go to the game every week.
Yeah, because obviously there's been so much success in that 10 years.
Of course, part of us that would think it was like,
that'd be awful.
My dad took me when I was a little boy, and his dad took him. It's that whole kind of that whole thing. It'd be, I suppose, it's you can't really stop you can stop progress if you own a sportswear company, I suppose. But it's just, it would really, I'll find that really hard. I really would find that hard,
especially if you move outside the city centre as well.
It's hard to think where they would go. I mean, people say the arena side.
Yeah, that was one that they looked at, wasn't it? They looked at Leazes Park, and there was obviously big. There were big under Hull Shepherd. There were big. There were plans to
try to be knocked back once, wasn't it?
Yeah, got knocked back. So that would be, and again, that's kind of such kind of beautiful land. They did look at the arena. Did they not look in Gateshead at one point?
It was talked about. Yeah, I think before the redevelopment of the town centre.
Yeah.
I don't know where we go in Gateshead though. Gateshead, well, it's massive in a Gateshead.
It's huge. Like
I've said before, the Gateshead, it ends at like.
Can you go pretty much? Can you go south of the river as well? I'm sure that would be a big.
Well, I remember being at a house party once years ago, and there was a red and white I was having a go at is because I had to cross a body of water to go and watch my football team play. So I suppose it would get rid of that argument straight away. We'll go South Shields to Gateshead to watch.
I remember John Hall had that problem when they were. Also, John Hall is years now. When was it? Keegan talked about. Yeah, it was Keegan investigated the whole kind of Maiden Castle and Hall said, "You can't go. You can't do it. We cannot with Newcastle. We can't go south of the south of the water.
South of Sunderland is Bourburn, isn't it? Maiden Castle,
Durham,
That just ended really abruptly there.
It did, yeah. It was like, where are we going? Where are we going?
Okay, what's next?
Well, I've got one. I don't think you'll give us anything, like, to be honest, name wise, but like
Might swear at you.
You might swear at us, yeah. In terms of a manager, it is the one that you think we should go for?
No, I don't know. I mean, I'm just still in that state of disbelief. I mean, I know I can answer that question, but I can't answer that question satisfactorily. The manager they need is Rafa Benitez, right? And that's the manager that they've targeted for, effectively for 4 years when Amanda Staveley first tried to get the club, and he was named in all three of those. I think it was three of those written bids that she submitted. And, there were moments when it's just been one of those things. I mean, I think Rafa's timing seems to be really terrible when he takes these decisions. But, it's like when he left Newcastle for China, it was like, well, there's no club's going to come up. No clubs in the Premier League are going to come up, or certainly no, kind of big clubs. He didn't want to kind of work at the bottom of the Premier League. And of course, like every club came up. And I think it's been the same with this, that there's been moments when it looked like it would align. And then, of course, it hasn't. When I say he would be the perfect manager, I don't just mean, I'm not looking at that through rose-tinted Rafa glasses. It's the fact that he knows the squad, or a lot of the squad, the fact that he knows the city and has that connection with fans, that would have made it obviously wonderful. But it's the fact that they need a club builder. I mean, I'm not, if they feel they need to get a interim manager, then that just changes it. But they need someone to build a club. There was all that stuff about Conte at the start. Conte gets you from third to first, or second to first, or at the moment Newcastle needs someone to get them from 19th to out of the relegation zone. 17th. Yeah.
So you're saying Big Sam's coming in, George?
Then then they need someone from 17th to 10th, and then it's 10th to 6th, and then getting from 6th. I mean, particularly in you look at the Premier League now, it's crazy. You look at where Arsenal, where Arsenal are. Look at all these kind of big clubs, including Everton, who've spent so much money until Rafa gets there, of course. To compete with them and get above them, it's going to be really tough. And so they also need someone, ideally, who could have had an input on those things like academy and training ground, and that's why I sort of mentioned him. So I mean, but I don't know who sort of a younger version of Rafa would be. So I'm not trying to avoid the question. I just don't know. I mean, I've seen the same names as everybody else, and I know that yes, some of those people have been discussed. I mean, I do know that, but quite what they do. I think they are in a difficult position, because I don't think the first choice people are there, and if it's interim, how does that work, and how do you sell that to that person? I still go back to the same point, though, that there's an imperative to make the first decision, and
I think that's what we're all just sat waiting for now as a fan base. That first, we've heard it, we've heard little clips of the plans and things like that, but now we're just waiting for that big decision, whether or not that's appointing like sort of director of football first, or if it's sacking the manager. And getting him replaced, something needs to be done.
I think the director of football thing, I do think that will take longer, because again, I think it's not like this is the start of them thinking about it, but I think there is that sort of expectation that they're just ready to go with whether it's players or managers and stuff like that. I mean, 18 months ago, they had a sort of a list of players that they would go for, and all those players have got. They've moved. They've moved. All of them have moved, or they've extended contracts, or that And the same as applied to manager. You can't just keep refreshing that list every week, because in the meantime, there's been a lot of that time when it looks like the takeover is not going to happen, and so people have kind of got on with their lives. And again, I think for things like sporting directors, a lot of that then depends on who that person is, who the manager is going to be. So who is available? Will they work together? And will they click? It has to be a joined up thing. So I think, I do think that when we talk about, or when they talk about process driven, they're still at the stage of deciding what they want the club to look like. And I think there will be, I do think they'll probably go for that kind of model, but I think they're going to take a while to get to that point.
I'm ready to wrap this up, unless you boys have anything else to add.
No, other than this is just stuff on. Obviously, I know that you met Rafa a lot of times and stuff like.
Yeah.
Have you heard? I'm not saying directly from him, but have you heard people connected to him? His thoughts on what's happened?
Yeah. Well, so a lot of the people involved in this are close to him, because it was actually sort of associates of Rafa that brought Amanda Staveley to Newcastle in the first place. Can't say that was part of a sort of huge plan, but she was kind of there. She came to Newcastle, that Newcastle Liverpool game, as their guests, and met Rafa that night. So there's always been that connection. That's not been a direct connection between him and Amanda Staveley. It's not been like that at all. It's not like somewhere in the corner he's been pulling the strings, waiting for this to happen or anything like that. But no, I think he's a very, very loyal. He's a very, very loyal man, and so there was never a chance. There's never a chance of him breaking a contract. He doesn't do that. So, he's kind of kept in touch with it. They've kept in touch with him when they've been in a position to, and I think he's genuinely delighted that, I think he's genuinely delighted that that it's happened, and he's not the kind of bloke to. He's got a really difficult job at Everton for all those. It kind of felt like in some ways it was the easy choice for him because it's closest to his home, but in some ways that's the most difficult decision he could have taken, because he risks losing what he had at Liverpool. And
I was stunned,
but no, I think he's genuinely chuffed for the club and for fans. He's got a very deep connection, and hopefully always will. And of course, you never know what might happen in the future, do you?
Yeah.
I'll end on this one, so just quickly go around the table. Besty, will we stay up?
Yeah.
Deka?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
George?
Yes, I think so. I am worried, but yeah, I think so. But I think so.
I think it's trusting that they'll make the right decision with regards to replacement. I don't want them to. I've got this fear that they'll try and appoint Keegan, and it'll just be everything that happened 14 years ago all over again.
Sign Alan Smith.
Jeremy will be back. David Rosnall, and I thought he was quite good. Him actually just didn't quite. But yeah, I think it's because we've been so, and I'm going to be really careful what there's a kind of metaphor I don't want to use here because it's not nice, but when you've been kind of subjected to 14 years of I don't want to say abuse, that's what I'm trying to avoid, but 14 years of kind of what we've had under Ashley, it feels as if I don't want to get too excited. I don't want to kind of think, oh, well, they're going to get this bloke as director of football. I don't know any director of football apart from Dennis Wise, so as long as it's not him.
Executive director bracket football.
Oh, Les Ferdinand. Yeah. But even then, I don't even know if Les Lenny could keep your eye on great others. So
can I just say as well that it's been fantastic to see the club promoting things like that through the likes of the website and the social media over the last 7 days, bringing the likes of Les Ferdinand in for an interview. Yeah. It's something which we've mentioned this for years upon years. Get those sort of players involved.
Yeah. Well, if it was up to me, that bloody film that I've still not made, and what would have been about Les Ferdinand had been finished. Taylor Guns, we'll go to Belgium, see Philippe Albert. Fucking 5 years later, and the rest.
I was going to say 5 years.
It was great. So Ginola was doing his stuff on the side of the pitch for Sky, so right in front of where I was, and he was like filming the crowd with his mobile phone, and he was whipping the crowd up, and it was great seeing those. There's been, whether it's Shearer or whether it's Keegan, there's been such that there's been a lack of connection everywhere. And at least that connection is coming back. You're right. We're waiting for the first big decision. I mean, they've made, the biggest one of all is buying the club. That's quite a big one. So they're allowed a bit of grace. But yeah, we're waiting for the first big decision and see how that ripples out. I do think I think one thing that's tough is that it's an ownership group, if you want to call it that, and so it's three strands, and we know that the Amanda Staveley, Mirdad Gadusi kind of element have had their have been leading it, and have been leading it in football terms as well, but ultimately there are 80% owners. There are 80%. And we don't know how that's going to work. Everything that sort of I've been told at the start is that it's going to take a while to settle down, because they're still working out how the power structure is going to work. There's no CEO. We know Lee Charnley is still there at the moment, but is not on the is not on the board. He's helping them through. So even those parts of that decision making thing are not kind of set in stone yet, and they will be getting bombarded right now with agents putting names for players, managers, all the rest of it, and that has to settle down. They have to get into a position where, particularly when we get to January. I mean, the manager thing is obviously the priority now, but when you get to January, you've got to make a decision and then do it straight away, because otherwise you lose your player. This is something that Ashley's Newcastle were terrible at, and one of the things that Rafa went spare at repeatedly. It's you make a decision to do it, but then you have to do it.
Yeah,
and it's no good if at the moment everything is going back to Saudi and taking a week to get resolved. You can't do that in the transfer window because you'll just lose the players. So it has to settle down, and it has to settle down quickly. I have faith in that because we have to give them that faith, and I think they've said absolutely everything right. The challenge is that they have to start doing things right.
Who would be advising them, George? Something I've wondered, because I mean, as I understand, no one on the board's ever kind of run a football club before. No. So when it comes to appointing a director of football manager, who's making that decision? How on what basis would it be made? Or are they being advised by?
Well, I mean, I
Lee
think
Charnley.
no. Well, I don't. Well, no, he's still there. He's still there. I mean, he's not on the board, so he will still be having kind of conversations internally and things like that. I mean, she's got her own. She's had her own football advisors. I mean, they've been kind of named now, and so I can name them. It's Owen Brown, who's he is a long-time associate of Rafa, but was also Liverpool chief scout, and is Phil Foden's agent at the minute. He's very, very well connected in football. And
does that mean we're signing Phil Foden?
Maybe not in January. And then Frank McParland as well, who's who was around Jasmine Dean House Hotel the other week, and I mean, he's sort of done just about every single job in football, but loads of sporting directors' jobs, loads of head of recruitment jobs, and he's kind of heavily involved. And I think you would expect him to have a kind of wide-ranging recruitment role at Newcastle as well. But as I say, at the moment, he hasn't got it. I mean, they haven't appointed anybody, so they haven't signed things like that off. So he hasn't been able to go to the training ground and see what's what. So that I'm not concerned. I mean, I am concerned about that. I'm not worried about that. But you need those people to start getting in there, because they're the people that they'll be able to smell trouble at the training ground.
Yeah.
They'll be able to know. Okay, he'll have watched that game yesterday and know where it needs sorting. And so they have to get into a position where they're doing. But again, the caveat I'll give is that I've just mentioned those two names, and that they're in the public domain. I don't know what PIF want, so that's the tricky bit.
You would have thought that the amount of time it's taken, that they're not just going to turn up and kind of do a half-assed Mike Ashley job and kind of will keep them in the Premier League.
No, and they've Yasser Al-Rumayyan has been, when they've been having all these calls over the last sort of 18 months, and it's going back to 2 years really. He's been involved in those calls and talking about recruitment and all that. So and strategy. So yeah, that's that. It's just I think we're at the point where we just need the first decision, and then the rest can sort of start coming out.
What happened yesterday, do you think, have accelerated the thinking behind that? Because it felt to me as if it was almost the medical emergency notwithstanding, kind of the perfect afternoon where you've got the flags, kind of Big River, and the everything that happened there. The start they made, and you can see that Remind?
I think so. Yes, I'll
remind. There's a video of him with Mandas Daly, and he's impressed by what he's seen. He's having a nice time.
Did you?
I've seen it on 61 minutes.
Very good lip reader. He WhatsApp texted us, as I say.
Yeah. Did you see that clip on Match of the Day 2, which was great at the end of it last night? It was like the too good, too bad thing, and I presume it's his little daughter, but she was doing selfies of them, and she was like sticking her tongue out. Meanwhile, Spurs had just scored.
I think
Amanda's gone. I think. But which is kind of quite strange.
It felt amazing with the atmosphere of the first Callum Wilson's goal early on, and then what happened subsequently was kind of they've seen what it can be, what it is, and what needs to be done.
And I think the hope was that the phrase used was that the hope that there would be that halo effect, that everything would just kind of get swept away with that emotion, including the game, and Newcastle winning. It was great. The problem with if that actually had happened, it would have been great, and we needed 3 points and still do desperately. There's a little 3-point gap at the bottom of the table already, isn't there?
Still there.
Still very early. But in some ways, perhaps what happened was more valuable because it was like, okay, that was brilliant. We have had that glimpse of what it could be, but no, Newcastle are in the shit, and so we have to start acting. Because if Newcastle won 2-0 yesterday, say, and everyone's gone swept away, it would have swept a lot of sort of difficult truths under the table a bit, under the carpet a bit. I mean, so they saw it with their own eyes, and there's no getting away from the sort of the big frailties that are there in that squad.
Anything else?
It's just exciting going to the game again. That's my big takeaway from yesterday was even though the game wasn't very good and things didn't go kind of to plan in many ways, it was just nice I felt excited to go and watch Newcastle play again, and I hadn't felt that for even before actually. People have said it's been 14 years of mismanagement, but it's been more than that. It's been a lot more than that.
No, I agree.
I'd say it's been 127 years, really. But there's the occasional.
But 120. That feeling of. I mean, I still get excited about a Saturday, but when I get to the ground, it was like, no, it is going to be shit. And I enjoy the bit. I do sort of enjoy the journey there, and I enjoy walking up to the stadium, and I still get that sense of feeling. And you go into the stadium and see the grass, and it's like yes. And then the closer it gets, it's going to be rubbish. And that sense, you've just got to hold on to that feeling of just how brilliant it was. And
I wish I'd have left after the first goal, to be honest.
It would have just been perfect.
It's
that thing. It's like it's so
peak early.
You're so close to that. A lot of hard work ahead, but at least that feeling's back.
We'll get there. We'll get there, and I'm positive of it.
I've got no. Sorry, Chris. I've done the right mark there and all. But I was saying to the lads, I can't wait when my boys are old enough to take the game that I'm going to take and watch it. Some of that, I've got mates who've got like boys that are older than mine, but the way like a Bayern Munich shirt to go and play football in, or a boss. I love the idea that mine lads are going to want to wear Newcastle shirts.
Get the black and white stripes back locally.
Spend their ultimate team points on Newcastle players and stuff like that. Just go and watch, like I was saying, my mate, like my dad took us to watch. I watched him play Kiev in the Champions League, and he didn't take us to Barcelona. He went. I'm still a bit bitter about that, actually. But I love the idea. When my dad's a bit older, you got your kids and watch good football.
In fairness, they're hopefully lucky to be growing up in that era. Do you know what I mean?
It's going to be bloody expensive, though, isn't it?
It is.
This could end up being one of those terrible football takes things on Twitter. 15 years time, these daft Newcastle fans.
Your son they
thought it was going to be good.
It ends up being
that's why I can't.
Tony Sheard Villa kind of situation.
That's why I can't. I think you've said it before. I just can't fully allow myself to.
Yeah,
I'm just waiting for the first domino to fall, and that's Bruce to be out. I'm literally one step.
We're conditioned to. It's like, what do Newcastle fans expect? Well, you expect it to go wrong. I mean, we're so conditioned to that. And so I think
I'm scared to dream.
Yeah, I'll tell you what.
I'm exactly the same.
But I think Newcastle have lost a generation. I mean, I think because why would you take your kid to that? I mean, or to put that another way, why would they want to do it? Mm-hmm. Why would they want to do it? What are they going to get? And that is the sort of heartbreaking thing that there's been nothing to draw people to the stadium.
No,
because that they don't give a toss, and so why should you give of yourself, and why should you give your money, and why should you give your hope? Why should you give your care? And I think you got that first stirring yesterday that it's still there, that there is that market there, but it should come. That should be natural to us here, shouldn't it? That should be the birthright. But it's been, Anyway, there's a lot of repair work to do.
I think, I think you've just summed it up perfectly. Now we're just waiting for that first domino to fall.
Yeah,
and that's where we'll go from there. But I'm going to wrap it up.
You said that before.
I know. Well,
one more thing.
I'm sort of over here.
Thanks everybody who has been watching. There's nearly 400 people there watching at the minute, so thank you very much.
Great.
If you do want to like the video as well, that's absolutely fantastic of you. There's been a couple of members as well joined tonight, so thanks very much to you as well. And thank you everyone who's listened to the audio too. The numbers on that one are doing fantastic at the moment, so thanks to you guys, and we'll see you next time. See you later.